Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for being here. Today we are going to be doing a Q&A all about labs on campus, online, and all of the questions that you have that you submitted through my Instagram stories a few weeks ago. So I have my pre-workout going. If you notice my energy increase throughout the video, then that means it's working. But grab your favorite drink and let's get started. Okay, y'all, so the first question somebody asked, what are gross anatomy labs like? And this is a great question because depending on what chiropractic school you go to, your gross anatomy labs could be different. But I can only speak for Parker's. So at Parker University, we have the special and unique opportunity to actually dissect a donated cadaver. And like I said, it's very, very special. It's a very respectful and honorable opportunity for us to get to learn on a cadaver. And some of the, I can't really speak on the differences between like pre-COVID gross anatomy lab and now. So I'm just going to talk about my experience, but we wear goggles, gloves, and a mask. We also wear a lab coat and scrubs, and we get assigned to a specific cadaver with a group. And so in my group, we have, let me count, 6. So we have 6 people, but it varies per tank. And sometimes it's 5, 4, 6. It just kind of varies on how many people you have in the lab, but we have 6 in our group. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit worried at how they were going to split that up and how many people we were going to have per group, just because sometimes if the group gets too large, it can kind of hinder your learning experience. But 100% transparency, having 6 people in our group has not hindered my learning experience at all. In fact, I think it's even just helped because we get multiple perspectives and we all come in knowing, you know, some know more than others in a particular topic, and so we kind of help each other and we quiz each other and test each other while we're there. And it's been a really, really nice experience getting to meet other people because, as you know, it's been kind of difficult to do so during this time. So having, 6 people in my group has really been a blessing overall. I know some schools pride themselves on only putting a certain number of people per group. And while that sounds appealing, I would encourage you to not let that hold you back from attending another school that maybe doesn't have a cap. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can get too many people per group, but if you're hearing things like 5 to 6 people per group, don't let that scare you because in my experience, it's been nothing but great. To answer your question even more about just kind of what gross anatomy lab is like. So for me, I had it as my first lab of the day. So we would go to the gross lab, we would walk in, put on our gloves. We already were given a lab coat and goggles and a mask. We had to come with a mask, of course. So I would come dressed in my scrubs, my lab coat, I would have my goggles on me, my student ID, that's also really important, at least at Parker. We would walk in, put our gloves on, sign in, and then go to our specific cadaver tanks. And sometimes we would have pop quizzes, sometimes we wouldn't, which was always a good day when we didn't. But usually at the beginning of lab, our professor would kind of review some information with us, and then we would get started. So we had pre-lab videos to watch, and those covered the how-tos of the dissection. So theoretically, you should all show up, kind of understanding what you're going to do with the dissection. And so whenever he gave us the go-ahead, we would get started and we would start dissecting and we would talk about the different parts of the body and what we were looking at. And at some point, our professor or an assistant professor would come over and, kind of quiz us or make sure that we knew what we needed to know about that specific part of the body. So we started out dissecting the back and then we moved into the head and neck. So next trimester, we will cover, I believe, like the extremities and like the abdomen area, if I am correct. That's all we have left on our cadavers. So I'm assuming that's what's next. But yeah, that's pretty much what it would look like. And then once we did all of that, once we dissected, and then a professor kind of checked, gave us the check mark, the go ahead that we were good and that they felt comfortable that we understood the information we needed to, we would clean up. And so we would do our cleanup duties, and then after that, we were free to go. Okay, the next question someone asked, what are COVID precautions that the school is taking? So when I would get there, before walking in, we had to undergo a screening. So our temperature was taken. We were asked if we answered yes to any of the questions that are on a sign outside, which are, are you running a fever? Have you come into contact with somebody in the past 10-ish days? Are you experiencing any symptoms that we need to be aware of, etc. And then we could get a wristband, and that wristband would signify we could go into and out of the building without having to stop and be screened again, because we had already been screened. And we have to wear a mask unless we are eating or drinking. But other than that, we have to wear a mask. And then in gross anatomy lab, which I covered a second ago, we did have to wear gloves and goggles. But in our other labs, we really just had to wear a mask the entire time. And then also in the buildings, they have like a structure of how, like, what doors you can enter and exit into. Somebody asked, how often are you guys in person, and what's the plan for returning on campus? And that is a great question. So I'm only going to speak for trimester 2 labs because this is a video revolving that, and I don't have experience and don't know a ton about upper tris. But for Tri 2, we got to be on campus for labs 1 day a week, and that was either like Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And while we were there, we got to be a part of 3 labs, which were gross anatomy, chiropractic methods, and motion palpation, biomechanics or motion palpation, thankfully. So our very hands-on labs we got to be a part of. Other labs that we are in were online, and those would include like microbiology, physiology. Am I forgetting one? If I'm forgetting one, somebody comment below. But our less hands-on labs were online. So the plan for returning in the future is supposedly going to look like in the summer, we're going to be about the same as we were now. And then in the fall, we're supposed to transition all in person, from my understanding. Now, I don't want to put incorrect information out there, so disclaimer, all of this could change, and we're just gonna go with the flow. But I think the plan is to return hopefully in the fall, and I'm really hopeful about that. But getting to have our 3 hands-on labs in person was such a blessing, because we actually got to meet some people in our trimester. And also the 2 labs, chiropractic methods and motion palpation, those labs are really hands-on. And what I mean by that is we're learning how to palpate statically, and we're learning how to palpate with motion. So those are crucial to having in person, and I'm just so thankful that we were able to do that. Okay, y'all, this is my favorite question out of these questions because it's about my 2 favorite classes. So this person said that they want to know everything about chiropractic methods or static palpation versus biomechanics or motion palpation. So I brought out my handy dandy spine, and we are going to talk about differences in how these classes or these professors would ask questions. So in chiropractic methods or static palpation, first of all, static means still. It means not moving. So in this class, you're learning how to feel the spine and parts of the body, because we also felt segments on the extremities when the body is not moving, versus motion palpation has motion. So you're putting motion into the joint or part of the body that you're trying to feel for. So let's do a little example. In chiropractic methods, one way that he could ask a question is find L4 spinous process. So you would have the patient laying down supine, and we would palpate. I'm going to do it with my right hand, but technically I'm on the left side, so I should be doing it with my superior left hand, but I'm going to do it with my right hand, so Dr. McCabe, don't come for me. Okay, so I would palpate for L4 spinous process, and I would say verified by bony resistance. Don't ask me why, we had to learn it that way. So L4. And that's it. I am feeling it L4. It is not moving. That's it. That's an example for static palpation chiropractic methods. Now, if we were in motion palpation or biomechanics, here's an example of how she would ask something similar to L4. She would say, find left rotation of L4 vertebrae, okay? And so I would stand on the left side, and this is really hard to do because I need this to be in the air, but I would stand on the left side and I would do the process. I'm not gonna go into it, you'll learn it, and I would feel for left rotation of L4 spine or L4 vertebra. Does that make sense? I hope this example helped. But that's the difference in them, like the quick difference. Let me get my drink. That's the quick differences between them. Now, when it came to tests, they're not called tests in lab. They're called skills checks. And while you can kind of talk yourself into having a negative attitude towards them, they're actually very beneficial because they prepare you for the practicals. So keep that in mind. They might be like annoying, but at least you're staying on top of your work. And so skills checks are exactly what they sound like. They're checking your skills before your practical, before your big final. Think of your practical as like a final in a sense. So skills checks, you get assigned one movement, and you have, in chiropractic methods, you don't have a time, or do you have a time limit? I don't remember. Somebody help me. But in biomechanics, I think you have a certain time limit for skills checks, but it's not that big of a deal. I think you have like 3 minutes or something to do one move. It's not a big deal. And then they will give you, well, depending on the professor, they will give you feedback on it, either right then and there, or they'll give you feedback like after you get your grade. And then practicals are a little bit different. So for practicals and chiropractic methods, you get assigned a partner and you have 5 minutes to complete 4 movements. And this is going to come into play in one of the questions that I'm going to answer in the future. But you have 5 minutes for 4 moves. Now for biomechanics motion palpation, I think you have, y'all, I'm tripping. For biomechanics, you definitely have 5 minutes for 3 moves. I'm kind of nervous that I messed up the chiropractic method ones, but I'm going to keep going with it because I think it's right. So I think it's 5 moves in 5, and then this is so sad, and then 3 moves in 5 for biomechanics, I think. But anyways, so there's a time limit there. Well, that sounds intimidating. Like, I totally get it, but we'll save how I overcome that intimidation in the next question. But anyway, so that's how practicals are set up, and they're really serious because it's all of the moves that you've learned that entire trimester, and then you get randomly assigned either 4 moves or 3 moves depending on the class you're in. You don't know, it's not like you look at the paper a week before so you practice those specific moves. No, you walk into the classroom and he or she hands you a piece of paper and you're seeing those moves for the first time in a test experience, in a practical experience. I mean, you've obviously been studying them, hopefully, but you're seeing a randomized group of the moves you've been studying for the first time. So it is a little bit more intimidating, don't get me wrong, but it is so rewarding when you rock it and like kill it. And it's just like, yes, I have been practicing, and that's for any test in chiropractic school or in school. Like, you know that feeling whenever it's just like, okay, that was really nerve-wracking, but I freaking rocked it, and it's because of the work that I put in. And that leads me into, for these 2 classes, don't get me wrong, for all of the classes, for all of them, yes, but for these 2 classes, you have got to put in the work, okay? You're gonna learn what you're gonna learn when you go into lab. That's great. But you have to keep practicing these movements outside of lab. You have to. I don't care if it's on your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your wife or your sister or your mom or your dad or your friends in chiropractic school. Like, you have to keep practicing these outside because your fingertips it's like muscle memory, right? There is such a conscious connection between what you're physically feeling for and your mind, what you know you're feeling for. And you're going to hear a lot of people talk about or say things like learn to listen with your hands or learn to listen to your fingers. And at the beginning, you're going to be like, yeah, right. Like, I literally just need to figure out what I'm feeling, like what I am feeling. And yes, I agree with that. But if you can, from the beginning, I feel like I could do a whole video on this. If you can. So clearly I just went on a little rant, and I wanted to cut myself off there because I think that I could do like a whole other video on it. But just know that for your labs, specifically chiro methods and motion palp, you have to palpate outside of lab. Just know that. That's the biggest takeaway from everything that I just said previously. And have fun. It's so easy to psych yourself up or out of it, I guess is the better way to say that. It's so easy to just become so nervous before practicals, but you know your stuff. One of our assistant professors before we walked into a practical said, everything that you've learned is in your head. Like it's in your head. It is there. So don't go into this practical telling yourself, I don't know anything. You literally know everything that you're about to see. So pull from it. Use that resource. Use your brain. Like, it's in there. And I just remember hearing that and I was like, yeah, like I do know it, you know? So really just hear me when I say that, and shout out our professor for telling us that, because it was just like, she's right, you know? We do know this. So don't go into practicals or tests or skills checks saying, I don't know this. Yeah, you can joke about it, whatever. But really mentally, you need to be your number one fan. You need to be your number one fan. And I'm going to stop right here because, again, I think I could make a whole other video on like the conscious connection between palpating and like your brain and just kind of how I've found, at least, how that ties together. But palpate outside of class. That is my biggest tip. The next question I'm super passionate about. I've been passionate about all these questions, but this one too. So someone asked, how do you study for lab practicals? Girl, gotta put my drink down for this. Okay. Y'all listen up to this one, because this changed how I like approached practicals and hopefully will serve me well in the future. But I can say it served me very well for try two. You have to practice under pressure. Okay. My clinic intern, shout out Jerry for this tip. You have to practice with a timer on. And better yet, so earlier I talked about how chiro methods, you do 4 moves in 5 minutes. Motion palp, you do 3 moves in 5 minutes. When I was studying for chiropractic methods, he said, you need to study and train doing 5 moves in 4 minutes. For biomechanics, you need to do not 5 moves in 3 minutes, but like you need to shorten that time range. And so I'll tell you how I kind of tweaked that to fit me. So for chiropractic methods, I trained for that practical by doing 5 moves in 4 minutes, like he said, like he recommended. And then for biomechanics, I trained doing 3 moves in 3 minutes. And with biomechanic practicals, they are a little bit more verbally intensive, or like you have to be a little bit more mindful, because she asks you questions and you have to tell her the segmental contact point, the contact point, the line of drive, etc. Versus chiropractic methods, you don't have to say anything other than one verbal verification. And so both of them, you're graded on accuracy, of course, but for biomechanics, it can be a little bit more intimidating, or maybe even take a little bit longer, because you're having to spout off all of these different things that I mentioned a second ago. So when you study for a practical, y'all, you have to mimic the situation that you're going to be in for the practical. So if your practical's timed, and this goes for tests, it's like I need to start studying like this, just even outside of lab practicals. But for lab tests, like put yourself in that situation. So when you link up with a chiropractic student, and me and my BFF did this too, we would set a timer and we would give each other 5 moves and set the timer and say, boom, go. And that was the best way that I ever could have studied for those practicals, because it is mimicking exactly how it's going to be. And if you're studying with somebody who is in school with you, so they know how it's going to be, for example, in biomechanics, whenever me and my friend would study, we would ask each other the questions that we know our professors were going to ask. But when I was studying with my husband didn't know, what exactly how it was going to be. I would just say it. So every move that I did for biomechanics, he wasn't asking me anything, obviously, but the whole time I would say my segmental contact point is this, my contact point is this, my line of drive is this, and I'm feeling for this. Like I would say it over and over. And so that's my biggest tip. I know I just took 4 minutes to tell you all that, but mimic the situation. Practice under pressure. # practice under pressure. That's it right there. # practice under pressure. That will change the game for you. And I'm really, really praying that helps in the future. So if you're an upper tri, let me know. Like, how do you study for practicals? Is that helpful? Is this method helpful in upper trimester practicals? But ultimately, shout out freaking Jerry Villarreal, because he told me that at the beginning of the tri, and I tried to tell as many people as possible about it, but that's the way to go. So # practice under pressure. Okay, this next question doesn't really have anything to do with labs, but I'm still going to include it, and I'm going to try to keep it under 2 minutes because I think it's important and just an important reminder. But somebody wanted to know kind of how I balance like life and social life and school and work and all of that. So first of all, Jesus, like honestly, my faith in the Lord has grown so much, especially over this time in my life, like since starting Tri 2. I got married, we moved to a different city. I met a ton of new people in my tri because we were going to on-campus labs, and all of it is such we got more involved in our church, and all of it is such a blessing, but it is busy. And so I've just really found that my faith in the Lord has guided me through these situations. And also I've had to say no to some things. And some cool opportunities, but that's okay. I really tried to lean on the Lord and say, is this something I should take on? Is this something that you want me to be a part of and put energy towards? And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no. And one of my biggest priorities is my marriage. And so, there's some things that thankfully my husband totally understands and is like, yes, like pursue that, do that. And then there's some things that I make the decision to say no to because I know that energy that I would be putting towards that, I would rather be putting towards my relationship with him and spending more time with him amidst the busyness of work and school. So anyways, yeah, I would just say Jesus, and getting involved in church has been a game changer for us. And I think that's about it. Oh, the other thing I want to say is, and I know this might be kind of contradicting, but Tri 2 has been really hard, guys, like really freaking hard. And I made a decision when I started realizing how really hard it was going to be, especially with adding so many changes in my life, like getting married, moving, starting in a new church and everything. I just made a decision for myself that while I would lean on the Lord and ask for his discernment in making decisions about certain opportunities, and while I have had to say no to some things, I also have said yes a lot. I know that's contradicting, but I've said yes to things that I feel like the Lord has affirmed. So if I haven't seen, like, for example, I haven't seen one of my best friends in a while, And she actually had availability on her schedule to hang out yesterday morning. Well, this is the weekend before finals. I could have easily had said like, honestly, like I really need to study for finals, and I do, and I will, and I am, okay? But I said yes. I was like, yes, I want to spend time with you because I know that you're somebody in my life who has been with me since the beginning. I love you. I respect our relationship. Like I want to invest in our friendship, and so I made time. So while I've said no to things that I feel like the Lord has led me to say no to, I've also said yes to a lot of really fun and enriching, is that a word? Fulfilling opportunities as well. And I feel like that has also helped me maintain drive and happiness and kept my stress levels low, because while Try 2 has been crazy and I have been stressed at times, I honestly had a lot of fun. Like I really did. And, that's a testament to the people that are in my lives, but it's really a testament to, I feel like, just leaning on Jesus and saying, like, what do you want me to say yes to and what do you want me to say no to? And chasing after those things. I tried to keep it under 2 minutes and it was 4 minutes, so sorry. Okay, last 2 questions. My girl asked me, I'm going to keep y'all's names, like anonymous or whatever, but this is one of my favorite people to follow. She asked me like what my favorite technique class has been so far, and then if there's any techniques that I'm interested in using outside of school when I'm in practice. So this is a fun question. I haven't learned any techniques yet. So in class we've only done static palpation and motion palpation, which aren't necessarily like chiropractic adjusting techniques. So I haven't learned those yet. Next try I'll be in diversified, which is fun. I'm excited to, start getting my hands on more people and learning new things. So I can't really answer the question of what my favorite technique has been that I've learned so far, other than just learning how to palpate and trying to become a master at that, because I think I'm going to do a whole video on how important I think it is to become a master at palpation before you start adjusting. But we will cover that another time. As far as techniques that I'm interested in, I literally don't know. I am just trying to be a sponge and be open to what I learn, because I don't want to put myself in a box yet. Until I start learning and hopefully becoming intrigued and sparked by specific techniques, then I'll start kind of naming, where I want to go. But yeah, I really don't have an answer to these questions because I don't know what I don't know. So, but I really hope I still was able to kind of answer it. I don't know. Okay, guys, well, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any follow-up questions, and thank you so much to those who submitted questions. It is super helpful to sit down and talk about these topics that I'm passionate about with some direction from your questions. So thank you so much, and y'all always ask the best questions. I'm really thankful for this chiropractic community, even if you don't see a chiropractor, or even if you aren't in chiropractic school, like, you're still a part of this community if you follow along and contribute to my posts and story question boxes in my stories, whatever it may be. I just really thank you for the support. And speaking of support, if you like and subscribe to my channel, I would greatly appreciate it, because that just means that we're growing this chiropractic community and sharing with others the power of chiropractic and what it looks like to be a chiropractic school student. And I'm just super passionate about sharing what I learn from others and what I learn in my experiences with you guys. And so I hope it helps. But like, share, and subscribe this video if you liked it, and comment down below what you want to see more of. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.